Picture this, a busy street. An elderly woman minding her own business. And then, slap. A young woman strikes her across the face in front of everyone. The crowd is frozen. Phones come out, but what happens next? Nobody saw this coming. Stay until the end because this story will blow your mind.
Before we get into it, smash that like button and subscribe so you don't miss stories like this. It was a long Tuesday afternoon in downtown Seattle. People were going about their day, heading to work, grabbing coffee, rushing to appointments.
On the corner of 5th and Pine, an elderly woman named Margaret was standing by the crosswalk. She was 73 years old, wearing a simple blue coat, carrying her groceries, just waiting for the light to change. That's when Jessica, a 28-year-old woman, came storming down the sidewalk. She was on her phone, clearly angry about something. Witnesses say she was yelling into her phone, her face red with anger. And then it happened. Jessica walked right up to Margaret and without warning slapped her hard across the face. The sound echoed down the street. Margaret stumbled backward, her grocery bag falling to the ground. Apples rolled across the sidewalk. The crowd gasped. Everyone froze for a second. Then the phones came out. At least a dozen people started recording. Jessica stood there, breathing hard, still holding her phone. Margaret held her cheek, tears in her eyes, looking confused and scared. "Do you know who I am?" Jessica screamed at her. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Margaret shook her head, clearly terrified. "I don't know you," she said quietly. Here's where things get interesting. So what was going on? Why would someone slap a random elderly woman on the street? The police arrived within minutes. Multiple witnesses gave statements. The video went viral almost immediately. People were outraged. The comments were brutal. "Lock her up. What kind of monster hits an old lady? She should be ashamed." Jessica was arrested on the spot for assault. She didn't resist. In fact, she kept saying the same thing over and over. She deserves it. She knows what she did. But here's the thing, Margaret genuinely had no idea who this woman was. At the police station, the story started to come out, and it was not what anyone expected. 3 years earlier, Jessica's younger sister, Emma, had died in a car accident. He was only 19 years old. Emma had been crossing that exact same street corner when a car ran a red light and hit her. She died at the scene. The driver? Never caught. It was a hit and run. The case went cold. No witnesses came forward with useful information. The family was destroyed. Jessica blamed herself for not being there. She became obsessed with finding the driver. For 3 years, she investigated on her own. She found traffic camera footage. She tracked down cars that matched the description. She spent every free moment searching. And then, 2 weeks before the incident, Jessica thought she found her answer. An anonymous tip led her to believe that Margaret had been the driver. The tip claimed Margaret had been driving her husband's car that night and had been too scared to come forward. Jessica became convinced this was true. She stewed on it for days. The anger built up, and when she saw Margaret on the street that day, standing at the exact spot where her sister died, something snapped. But here's what Jessica didn't know. The police investigated Jessica's claims immediately. They pulled Margaret's records. They checked her husband's car. They looked at everything, and they found something all right. But it wasn't what Jessica expected. Margaret didn't even have a driver's license. She'd never learned to drive. She'd been taking the bus her whole life. Her husband had passed away 5 years before the accident, and they'd sold his car when he got sick. There was absolutely no way Margaret was the driver. The anonymous tip, completely false.
The police traced it back to a random internet troll who had been making up stories for attention. He'd seen Jessica's posts in online forums about the accident and decided to mess with her.
Jessica had assaulted an innocent woman based on a lie. But wait, it gets even more shocking. The police, while investigating, decided to take another look at the original hit and run case. They had new technology now, better ways to analyze the old footage.
And they found something.
The actual driver was identified. It was a man named Robert Chun, who had fled the state right after the accident. He'd been caught for a different crime in Arizona and was already in prison, but authorities just hadn't connected him to the Seattle hit and run.
When confronted, he confessed. He said the guilt had been eating him alive for years.
So the real driver was found. Margaret was completely innocent, and Jessica, she was facing serious criminal charges for assaulting an elderly woman. Here's where the story takes its final, most unexpected turn. Margaret could have pressed charges. She could have made sure Jessica went to prison for assault. Everyone expected her to. The public certainly wanted her to.
But she didn't.
Margaret went to visit Jessica in jail. At first, Jessica wouldn't see her. She was drowning in guilt and shame, not just for hitting an innocent person, but for letting her grief turn her into someone she didn't recognize. But Margaret kept coming back. Finally, Jessica agreed to meet her. What Margaret said shocked everyone, including Jessica. "I lost my daughter too," Margaret told her. 20 years ago, cancer. She was 25. "I know what it's like to have that anger, to want someone to blame, to need answers." Margaret explained that she understood Jessica's pain, even though Jessica's actions were wrong. She told the prosecutor she didn't want to press charges. Instead, she wanted Jessica to get help, therapy, counseling, support for her grief. The judge, moved by Margaret's compassion, agreed to a deal. Jessica would do community service, attend mandatory therapy, and pay restitution, no prison time. Today, 2 years later, Jessica volunteers at a grief support center. She helps families who've lost loved ones to traffic accidents.
She's working to get justice through proper channels. And Margaret, she and Jessica meet for coffee once a month. Two women who lost daughters, who found each other in the worst possible way, but somehow found healing together. The slap that shocked the city ended up teaching everyone a powerful lesson. Hurting people hurt people, and healing people can heal people too. If this story touched you, hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible true stories. Drop a comment below. What would you have done in Margaret's position? See you in the next video.